Good morning, everybody. My name is Paul Galish. I'm the founder and CEO of Voxy. We're a New York-based venture-funded company funded by some of the pioneers in online education, including Princeton Review, Kaplan, Wireless Generation, SchoolNet. We're about 30 people, and I am really thankful to be here today, so thanks to GSV. So at its core, Voxy is a personalized mobile web application, and we teach English to people all over the world. Different than other languages, English is really a gating factor to socioeconomic improvement. A lot of people here may want to learn French or Italian. People really need to learn English, and it's an $80 billion market, and people take it very, very seriously. We were here last year presenting, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about how we came from our minimum viable product to where we are today. So simply put, Voxy uses mobile technology and real-world content. We use the GPS, the camera that's in your phone, and all sorts of other interesting functionality. What mobile offers is the power of context. And quite simply, learning in context is a lot easier. You remember things significantly better, and the learning is much richer. And that minimum viable product worked pretty well for us. We have about 2.5 million users, and 3x over last year. As much as mobile, as much as our beloved smartphones really have changed our life, Voxy's dedicated to the emerging technologies that are going to continue to evolve with us. Things like Project Glass at Google, this is real. We actually sent a developer to Google I/O about a month ago, and we built a language learning application using augmented reality glasses. So this is all about us. This is all upon us right now. The quantified self, things like that, that's the next generation of technology that we're going to be using to educate our people. So I want to talk to you about personalization. There's a lot of talk about adaptive learning. And what we've done in the last year since we had the minimum viable product I just showed you is develop a very, very sophisticated personalization and adaptive learning system. So what makes learning a language so difficult is that people are very, very different. Each one of you has different interests, different goals, different needs, different learning styles. A taxi driver in Sao Paulo, which is where about 50% of our users are in Brazil, is very different than a student in Turkey or a student in Beijing, for example. So let's talk about, we're going to talk about each of those 3 use cases, and then we're going to talk about, I'm going to show you a demo of the product about how we can use content created here at the summit to effectively teach you guys a language. So taxi drivers in Sao Paulo, a student in Beijing, and a banker in Turkey. They all need to learn English for very different reasons. They have very different goals. The taxi driver in Sao Paulo is getting ready for the Olympics and the World Cup, and he really needs to be able to converse with tourists. The student in China needs to pass the TOEFL, and the banker in Istanbul needs to practice a PowerPoint presentation for a client. Those all require different skills. One needs to speak and listen, oral comprehension. One needs reading and grammar, and the other needs to be able to speak and write. So how do we create one piece of software that can effectively serve 1 billion people, 1 billion unique curriculum? It starts with data, and everything we do is rooted in data, and what I'm about to show you leverages the power that exists today using big data. So we get it from a lot of different places. First of all, we can track with your GPS the different routines that you have. We can learn a lot about you about where you go. We know if you go to a bank 10 times a week, you likely work in a bank. If you go to the movies a couple times a month, you like movies. We also have I don't know if you guys remember Hunch.com, which eBay purchased, but we have a really addictive personalization sort of application built in, which allows us to continually iterate and improve the model and the algorithm that personalizes the curriculum. And finally, this is sort of the table stakes, which is the adaptive part. We always are working on your weaknesses. So we're able to optimize your learning experience based on where you're doing well and where you're not. All right, so I'm going to do a really quick demo. And it all starts with content. The way that all of us learned, and I don't care whether it's physics, history, English, but the way that everybody in this room learned is you start with a piece of content, and companies like Pearson or McGraw-Hill would pay people to create activities off of that content. What Voxy did is create a universally applicable sequence of activities that are very, very efficient in teaching those specific skills we need to, and we can ingest any piece of content. There's an insane amount of content on the internet: videos, how-to, internet memes, images, conversations, menus, forms, music. We can take anything and turn it into educational programming. So I wanted to use an example that we can all relate to, the summit here. And this is maybe a page of the website you may or may not have read, but our mission is to become a fulcrum of activity, et cetera, great group of people. So that's for an intermediate. If we were going to teach you as a beginner, which most people learning English are actually sort of at the intermediate level, we would use pictures. But today I'm going to show you what we can do with content that exists on GSV's website. So the first thing we do is we have a natural language processing, which we filed for a few patents, actually. It's a graph-based approach, which basically summarizes. And we can assess this for difficulty. And we can also identify in it 58 different linguistic elements. We can take all of those 58 pieces of sort of programming that we can, they're sort of the raw materials that create activities. And not only are able to find definitions and synonyms, but in testing, distractors are a really big part. So to understand how difficult a question is, the wrong answers that you serve to a student are really important. We also have different levels of content in that same passage. So we get a lot of leverage from a piece of content. A basic user would learn program, called, activity. An intermediate would use influence, debate, essential. If you're an advanced learner, you're going to learn things like strategic alliances and fulcrum and philanthropists. So the same piece of content can be used to teach and move someone up a proficiency continuum. And it all ends up in a multi-platform system that looks a little bit like this: tablet, web, who knows where form factors are going. Essentially, the Note 2, is it a tablet or a phone? I don't know. It's sort of both. So sort of in summary of the personalization part, you take your skills and feed that into an adaptive learning algorithm, your specific goals and the interests, and that combines to create an entirely unique learning experience. The other thing that we're doing is incorporating a one-on-one voice over IP tutoring actually into the software. So if we have this data and we have a software component that people are using, we can inject 15-minute real-world dialogues using voice over IP and actually take that very efficient session and feed the output from the tutoring session back into the algorithm as well, so that your next lessons are based on real human input. And the best part is it works. We have a PhD in technology-mediated second language acquisition. Spent 9 years researching this, and we've been doing a lot of research. We were able to improve TOEFL scores in 5 weeks by 22%. And we have lots of other studies underway. By the end of the year, we're going to have about 3 or 4 peer-reviewed papers on this technology and on this approach. It's competitive. I think I'm running out of time. But we really believe that the personalization aspect not only leads to higher and better outcomes, but it also makes for a much more efficient and profitable model. The technology that we're using that is ubiquitous across platforms really helps sort of access the emerging middle class around the world. And in summary, massive market. We have one of the best teams, best engineering teams in New York, and one of the best pedagogical teams in we think, the world. Patent pending product and technology, and a go-to-market strategy that's both direct to consumer and through our education partners. So thank you guys very much, and I'm around all day.